Alrighty, so today I'm going to be making a wonderful recipe from the Amish canning cookbook. Let me show you the cover. This is the cookbook right here. The Amish Canning Cookbook, plain and simple living at its homemade best. I like this cookbook a lot. A lot of the recipes in it are pretty basic, as far as they're the same type of recipes you'd find on the website for the National Center for Home Food Preservation. But today I'm going to be canning up some of this south of the border chicken soup. Y'all, I love this soup. This is so good. In fact, I have eaten through so much of it that it's time to make some more. So here I am making more soup, and I wanted to bring you along this time to show you how I do it. So here are the ingredients. It's going to call for 2 cans of kidney beans, and of course I'm using my own home canned kidney beans. It calls for 6 cups of diced tomatoes, fresh or canned, 2 cups of celery, 1.5 cups of carrots, about 4 or 5 or 6 diced jalapeños. I just have some from a can or from a jar of pickled jalapeños, diced pickled jalapeno. I don't have any fresh jalapeno right now. And then it's going to call for some spices. It's also going to call for chicken, which I've just taken out of the oven, so I don't want to touch that pan. But I've got 3 chicken breasts that I've baked in the oven, and I'm going to dice those up to put in the soup. So I'm going to go ahead and add these ingredients to my pot and get started on getting this mixed up. And then I'll take you through the canning process. So first things first, I'm going to go ahead and add all of my vegetable ingredients. Let me bring you closer so you can see a little bit better. All right, here we go. All right, so I'm going to just go ahead and put these in, and then I'm going to add my water and my bouillon for the broth. This is one of the easiest things, but I'm going to tell you, if you make this, you're going to love having this in your pantry. This is a wonderful go-to lunch. I love to have a bowl of this with a dollop of sour cream on top and some tortilla chip shreds, or those little strips of tortilla chips that you can get in the salad section at Walmart, like where they have croutons and things like that. Let me get my can opener. And in case you're wondering, this recipe will produce about 7 quarts of soup, but I don't can them up in quart jars. I can them up in pint jars because that's most convenient for me. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I'm going to also be adding corn to this, but that's frozen, so I'll get that out in just a minute. And some people might rinse their kidney beans first, but I don't. I just go ahead and put them in just like this because this is fine. It gets some of that good bean broth in there. Those beans are so good, y'all. There is nothing like home canning beans. It saves you so much money. It's just such a good thing to do. All right, I got to get that corn out. I've just got some frozen corn here. And it calls for 3 cups of frozen corn. Oop. That already dumped about 1.5 cups in there. So that's probably 2.5 cups. All right, so I didn't measure out 3 cups, but it might be more than 3 cups, and I don't care because I love corn in this soup, so it's okay if there's more corn. Alrighty, now I'm going to add 12 cups of water. All right, so there is 12 cups of water, and now I need to add the bouillon to get this so that it'll be chicken broth and not just water. And I'm going to go ahead and turn my pot on. And I'm going to need to get about 4 tablespoons of this because each teaspoon is a cup. And so 4 tablespoons would be 12 teaspoons, and that will be how many I would need for 12 cups of water. There's 1. 2. 3. And 4. All right, now one thing I'm going to do that's a little different than the recipe describes is I am not going to actually add my chicken to the pot. I'm going to cut that chicken up and distribute it in my jars. And the reason for that is I want to make sure every jar has the same amount of chicken. And when all the stuff gets mixed up in the pot, sometimes I've found that some jars get more chicken than others. It's just unavoidable unless you put your chicken in your jars and then add your soup to it. So that's what I'm going to do. And y'all look, I don't know about where you live, but where I live, we have finally started getting jars. Our Dollar General has them. Our Walmart had them actually a month or so ago, so I picked up a few packages of jars there. But I'll be unwrapping this in a minute. All right, so I actually had to go ahead and get those jars clean from the package because I don't ever want to just use jars right out of the package. So I washed them. I've got a couple more, but they just won't fit here right now. I'm going to go ahead and add the cumin and the salt to this soup, and also some garlic. And then I'll start cutting up that chicken to put in. All right, so it gets a teaspoon of cumin, and this is a half teaspoon, so I'm just going to do it twice. And get some salt. It's going to get a tablespoon of salt. And it's going to get 3 cloves of garlic, but I don't buy cloved garlic because I have found that these are an amazing value. So I'll just be getting the garlic from this. And I'm just going to do, I don't know, probably like a tablespoon or so. I like a lot of garlic. All right, so that's about 1.5 tablespoons of minced garlic. And let me just get that stirred up. Get all that mixed in. This smells so good. Anytime you add cumin to something and garlic to something, it's just going to smell amazing. Oh, it smells wonderful. All right, let me start getting these chicken breasts cut up and put into the jars. Let me move this back so you can maybe see a little bit better what I'm doing. All right. And these have cooled a little bit since I washed those jars, but it won't matter because they haven't been out long, and all this is getting added to the jars and is going to get pressure canned anyway. And I didn't salt these chicken breasts when I baked them. I just put them in the oven just like they were. Sprayed the pan with a little bit of Pam just so it wouldn't stick. You can also, you know, if you have leftover chicken, let's say you have a rotisserie chicken or you had roasted a chicken or something like that, you can always use that chicken. This calls for the breast. If you like something other than breast, like if you like the dark meat as well, go ahead and add that. It's totally up to you. I'm big on about the only thing I use chicken thighs for, honestly, is either Asian food or jerk chicken. Speaking of which, I gotta do a video of jerk chicken sometime. But I don't usually use chicken thighs for anything else. I use chicken breast for everything else, but that's a personal preference. I know some people absolutely love chicken thighs and dark meat. They think it has more flavor. And maybe that's one of the reasons why I don't use it for a lot of things, is because I think it has kind of a strong flavor, and unless it's going to be in something like with soy sauce and ginger or with the heavy spices of jerk chicken, I'd rather just have the breast. You know, I also like fried chicken, like chicken legs and thighs, so it's not true. I guess I do like it other ways. I forgot about that. In fact, the drumstick's probably still my favorite piece, even though I'm an adult. I never really outgrew that. I have 3 breasts. I have 12 jars here, and then I have 2 more. Let's see. I think I'm just going to take each breast and mostly distribute it among the 4 jars, and then maybe have a little bit left for the 2 at the end. So. Alright, so I have the chicken in all of the jars. I'm going to start putting the soup in the jars, and this is another thing that I'm going to break into parts, because I'm going to put the vegetables in with a slotted spoon first so that I don't get them too full of broth, and then I'll add broth to top them all off. Alright, you can probably see that I've tried to keep these pretty even. I've gone back and I've added a little bit more to each of these jars and tried to make sure as best I can that they look like they have about equal amounts of everything. And now I'm going to add broth, and there will surely still be some of the vegetables at the bottom of the pot, but I'll deal with those when I come to them. Also, I'm going to pour this broth from when I baked the chicken in here. And I'm going to use this to start filling these jars. And I'm going to leave about an inch of headspace because I don't want these to siphon. I want them to seal well. And an inch of headspace is to that, about that line right there. All right, so that's all of them. I've gotten them all filled. There is some broth left with just a tiny bit of vegetables in the bottom of the pot, but this recipe basically makes an exact perfect amount of this soup. So now I'm going to get these rims of the jars cleaned up with just a paper towel with a little bit of vinegar on it. And I'm going to get the lids on, and I'll get them in my canner. I do have my canner with water filled up to the line on the inside, and it's on, and I'm letting that get hot before I add these because we don't want thermal shock, and that will definitely happen if you put jars filled with hot broth in a canner with cold water. And it's actually almost hot because I've had it on for a few minutes. Yep, that water's warm enough now. I'm going to go ahead and start adding these in. And it's going to take 2 layers because it doesn't hold 14 jars in the bottom. Now I'm going to put the lid on. And I'm just going to wait until this starts to steam. Let me show you. I'm going to wait until this starts steaming. It'll start coming out of here. And once it's been steaming for 10 solid minutes, that's when I'll know I can put the regulator on. When it's steaming, you'll see this thing start wiggling around and this and that. Typically, after it's been steaming 10 minutes, this will be up. But the main thing is you just need a steady stream of steam coming out of that little vent for 10 solid minutes before you put the regulator cap on. So I'll bring you back when I do that. All right, you might not be able to see this, but that little valve is steaming pretty steadily. So I'm going to put the timer on my stove for 10 minutes. And once that has been releasing steam for 10 full minutes, a nice steady stream, which it has right now, that's when I'll put the regulator cap on and start bringing up the pressure. All right, the timer has just gone off. So now I'm going to put that little cap on there. And you see that little thing didn't come up. Sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. It seems like with this big one, it doesn't. But with my smaller one that's 17 quarts, it'll come up. But anyway, I've got my regulator on now. So now I just need to watch for this to come to pressure. And that's when I'll start timing. Once it comes to 11 pounds pressure, that's when I'll start timing for how long I need to process this soup. And this soup gets processed for 75 minutes at, for me where I live, 11 pounds, but in your area it might be different depending on your elevation. So I'll bring you back when this is done. All right, you can see that my little gauge has actually gotten to just past 11 pounds, and so I'm going to set my timer for 75 minutes, and meanwhile I'm also going to start turning down the burner a little bit because it doesn't need to be so hot, and then I'll just keep adjusting it. The main thing is that it never ever should drop below 11 pounds pressure. Mine typically hangs out around 12 pounds every time I can anything, and that's okay. It's okay if something's a little more pressure. You just don't ever want it to drop below the pressure, because if you do, you have to start timing it all over again once you get it back up to pressure. All right, let me set my timer for 75 minutes, and I'll bring you back when they're done. There we have them. They look pretty good to me. I bet that one is not going to seal. I'll show you. We'll find out. But if you notice, it's not bubbling at all. When it's not bubbling, that typically means it won't seal. We'll find out though. All right, these jars of soup came out great. Just like I predicted, this one did not seal all the way. And by the way, those little lines on the jars, that's from hard water. So that's why we put sometimes vinegar in the jars to keep the jars clean. But I didn't do it this time. It's okay. I'll wipe them down with some vinegar. Once the jars are totally cool, they're cool enough now that I can handle them. But I'm not going to put them away quite yet. But I just wanted to show you. They came out great. I can't wait to get these on the shelf and enjoy them. I'm going to be giving some to my brother. I hope you'll make these, and I hope you'll tell me what you think. Until next time, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.